So in today's video, I want to talk about something that can quietly make or break your reputation as a data engineer. And it's not Apache Spark code, or it's not some advanced SQL syntax, or it's not how fancy your Python code looks. So to be honest, most managers, most team leads, and most of the business stakeholders I know, they don't lose trust in you or in your data platform or in your data warehouse because you don't know one particular Spark function, or you don't know some kind of advanced SQL windowing functions or something. They lose trust when things like this happen, right? They lose trust when things like this happen. For example, they lose trust when your dashboard show wrong numbers for hours or days or even months as well, or when your sensitive data ends up where you should never be. Yeah, and they will also lose trust when you because of security incidents as well. And let's say there is some security incident that happened, and people suddenly realize that way too many people had way too much access, like some kind of admin access, and nobody and suddenly nobody and suddenly everyone understands that nobody actually designed all of this thing around permissions properly. So so what I'm basically saying is, one security mistake, like one single security mistake can basically undo months of good work and goodwill. Okay. So on the other hand, if you are the person who can quietly make sure that the right people have right level of access, and when normal human mistakes don't turn into like disasters or don't explode into like huge problems, and if you can ensure that you can explain all these calmly in interviews or even in architectural decisions or architectural discussions or design reviews, then basically I would say you will start looking like someone who can own a data platform, not just the person who will write some Spark code or SQL code or Python code, or who will just design some data pipelines. So in today's video, we are going to talk about one of the most important concept in security, and we are going to talk about the real security risk in data platforms. That is, we are going to talk about people and habits. So in this video, we will basically understand why people or humans are the biggest security risk actually, and what are some of the common mistakes or common behavioral practices that we will see, but those are security mistakes basically. And on how those common mistakes are, how those normal behavioral patterns can basically turn into huge bigger problems. So we'll also of course understand that, and we will actually also understand, we'll also talk about one small mindset shift that you can have and that you can basically apply from day zero as well. So so let's walk through this slowly, and try to understand it practically. Okay. So let's try to understand the first one, first topic. So let's try to understand how normal people creates bigger security problems, right? Let's try to understand how biggest security risks come from normal behavior. Yeah. So let's try to get into it. So to be honest, a lot of the security risks in data platforms don't start with some Hollywood or Bollywood kind of actor, who wears a hoodie and who will work at the computer, and you'll see on this neon green font, and with the black background. It won't start like that. Okay. A lot of the security issues in data platforms, they don't start with real hackers in the world. They start with completely normal people like you and like me. Okay. Doing they will start with completely normal people like you and me doing normal things, but under time pressure. Okay. That is the important thing. So people actually behave very differently when they are under some kind of pressure, especially under time pressure. Okay, so what we are basically saying is, we are saying a lot of the security issues, they don't start with, some kind of hacker or something like that. They will start with, normal people, normal people doing normal things, whatever they are supposed to do actually, but under time pressure. That is the important constraint that we need to talk about it here. So let's try to actually understand it with the example. Okay, um, so let's say, let me give you, actually, let's talk about three examples that we get to see in day-to-day life. And then actually, first example, on maybe actually all of these examples, I think you'll be able to relate it very properly if you are already working in companies. So let's try to understand them. Okay, let's try to talk about example one. Yeah. So example one is basically credentials. Okay, sharing, sharing credentials in the chart. Sharing credentials in Teams or Slack channel chart. Okay, let's say you are a data engineer, and you have one colleague from analytics team or BI or reporting team, who basically comes to you, and they will ask you something like, let's say, hey man, or hey woman, I'm trying to connect to analytics database from my notebook, or from the interface or from the UI, but I keep getting this connection error. Okay, so, but I really need to do this analysis before 3 p.m. because we have a meeting with the product team, and we need to present this analysis to them, and it's really important for me, but I'm getting this connection error. So can you please just help me quickly? So this is common scenario, right? You might have a colleague. Okay, let's say you are a data engineer. Okay, who has some kind of elevated access, or let's say you are an admin who has some kind of elevated access, and let's say your colleague from analytics team or BI or reporting team or MI team, who will come to you and ask you, okay, that I need to do some kind of analysis and present it to the product team or the business stakeholders, but I don't have, I'm getting this connection error, please help me. Okay, and what you will normally do, okay, let's say you are also busy with some kind of deployment or bug to fix, or um, or maybe you might also be busy with some preparing for some meeting that is coming up. So what you will do, so to be helpful to them, you will think like, okay, let me just give them some known working connection string, and that's the fastest way to fix it, and let me do that. Okay, so basically you will open your database server or config file or your script, and copy connection string, which might basically look like one of this. Okay, these are all some connection strings. Yeah, connection strings to connect to any kind of database or data warehouses, let's say that. Yeah, so let's say, let me just give this guy the working connection string, and they will be able to do their analysis and present it to product team or whatever, right? So what you will do, you'll open your config file, or you'll basically open your database server and go to properties, and copy the connection string, and then basically what you'll do is, you will try to, let's say, paste it into some kind of Slack or Teams channel. Yeah, so, and then yeah, and then you will basically tell them, oh, this is the take this is the connection string, and use this, and it should work. And then they will use that connection string, and it will work, and they will get their job done, and they will present the analysis, whatever analysis, to product team, and then everyone will be happy. So in that moment, it feels like completely reasonable, right? Okay, um, and because you have unblocked your colleague, you are being helpful, and you can move on. Actually, you can move on and do whatever the stuff you were doing previously. But let's talk about what happened here. Okay, let's talk about whatever happened here. So you just basically you just basically took the connection string. Yeah, and then pasted it into Teams or Slack, right? And that's what you did. And then, of course, your colleague took it from here and then did their analysis, yeah, and then presented it to some business. That's fine, okay. But this is the part you did, okay. You just took the connection string and then pasted it into Teams or Slack. But then, if you actually look at the connection strings and how they look, yeah, if you observe them, so here you can see, here basically you can see the username, yeah, in the connection string, and you can also see the password here, yeah. You can see the password and host name and port number, database, and everything. But then main important stuff is here you can see username and password, yeah. So now, including, since you shared your connection string, into the Teams or Slack channel, now basically your username and password are sitting in your chat message, okay? And other people who are present in that, who are part of that channel might be able to see the same connection string as well, okay. And someone might go one step further and they might forward that conversation to different colleagues, yeah, different colleagues who are not supposed to see that username and password for that particular database server, yeah. And some people, what they even do is they might, export all the chart messages for backup and compliance, right, for backup or compliance as well, yeah. And some people might even take screenshots, yeah, and update it in some documentation or somewhere, yeah. And nowadays, some people, what they will do is they will also, send it to some AI chatbot or LLMs, yeah. And basically, so basically what you were doing, what you done here is, you just sent connection string, you pasted that connection string in Teams or Slack channel, okay. And of course you are trying to be helpful for your colleague to do their analysis and present it to whatever the team, that's fine. But then, because of that one action, now many people in the channel can do it, can see the actually username and password, okay. And they might even forward it to different colleagues. They might export the chat messages to as part of backup or compliance, or they might even take the screenshots of that username and password and then send it to some other people who are not supposed to have that, who are not supposed to have any kind of access to that particular database, yeah. And some people actually might, might even include it in some documentation or somewhere, or some people might even, send it to LLMs to do something, whatever, yeah. So now you have it in everywhere. Now your username or password are exposed to each and every different places where they are not supposed to get exposed, right? So, and over the time, because of this pattern, over the time, you basically, you basically don't really know, or you can't even track how many people have actually how many people actually have access to these connection strings. How many people actually have access to these connection strings, or where that string actually now lives outside your control, yeah. You don't really know where that connection string now lives outside it control, outside your control, or how many people actually have access to that connection string. So if basically any of those places are compromised, or a former employee who still have access to old chart logs, um, that one helpful message, that one helpful message, whatever you are trying to do to you help your colleague, can become entry point into your analytics database, okay. And that's not good, right? Again, here the data engineer or whoever the platform admin, whoever is, whoever is trying to help the colleague, yeah, by by sending the connection string. Is not evil here, he's not bad here, okay. They're just like human, like you and me. They're just trying to help, other colleagues. They're just trying to be nice, yeah. They're just trying to be helpful and fast, actually. But from trust point of view, this is a pattern that slowly erodes security in data platform, and that can seriously cause, some trust issues to your business stakeholders, right? So we don't really we have to do that, okay. um, we'll also talk about, how you can avoid these situations, yeah. As part of the conclusion, we'll of course going to discuss that. But let's move to the different example, yeah. Which is also one of the most common security risk. Yeah, let's talk about example 2, that is exporting data from your data platform or data warehouse, to your laptop. No, exporting data to CSV or Excel and storing it on a laptop. Okay. Now, this is also again one more classic example. Let's say imagine a data analyst or a BI developer, or or some kind of MI developer who wants to understand, maybe let's say, who wants to understand churn, yeah, churn for maybe Asian or European customers, yeah. If you don't know what churn means, churn is basically about understanding, how many customers actually have ended their relationship with the company for whatever reasons. Churn is basically about understanding how many customers actually ended their relationship with company for whatever reasons, okay. It's about churn is about understanding that, okay. Let's say now you have a data analyst or BI developer, or some kind of analyst who wants to understand, churn for European or Asian customers. So basically what they will do is they will come to you and they will say like, okay, I want to see, or even it can even be it can even be like a business user. It don't have to be data analyst or BI developer, okay. But let's say they want to understand the churn for Asian or European customers. They will basically come to you and say like, hey, I want to see how many customers in maybe Denmark cancelled in last 6 months, okay, and what kind of patterns we see, and maybe can we actually make it on slide deck before next week, okay. So they will come to you and say like this, and basically they will go into the data warehouse and run some kind of select query, okay. Basically, what they will do is they will go into the database and run some kind of select query on the customers table. They will run maybe something like, yeah, um, select star from customers, yeah, select star from customers, where country equal to maybe Denmark, yeah. Yeah. So they will go into the data warehouse and let's say they will run a query like this. So now what will be the result? They will basically get to see all the data from the customers table, for which country is equal to Denmark, right? And then let's say in your user interface, maybe let's say you also have option to export that data to CSV. And what they will basically do is they will click on export to CSV. They will click on export to CSV button, okay. And then they will get the data in that CSV file, and they will basically save that file on their laptop, okay, maybe with some name. And then what they will do, they will maybe open it inside they will open this data inside Excel or Power BI desktop, actually Power BI desktop, and try to do some kind of analysis, okay. So now now try to do some kind of analysis, churn analysis, and that's fine. But slow down a little bit, and then let's try to understand. Okay, let's try to understand what they're doing. So now they're trying to export the data of customers that belong to Denmark, and then they're trying to do some kind of analysis from their local laptop, right? But now in their local laptop, since they exported this customer data and saved it on their local laptop, now they will be able to suddenly see the details of all the customers. For example, they will be able to see their names, yeah, and they will be able to see their emails, and maybe phone numbers, yeah, and they might be able to also see their addresses, yeah, and also they might be able to also see some kind of internal IDs, yeah, or some personal information, and maybe also some kind of subscription details, or or some contract details as well, right? Yeah. So now from their local laptop, the data analyst or business user, or whoever it is, they will be able to basically see all the details of customers. Okay, all the personal details, and all the details of customers, like their names and email IDs, phone number, address, internal ID, subscription details, and contract details, and etc. Okay. See, they might be allowed to query this data and see this data, that's fine, but then main thing you need to understand is, they are actually seeing this data from their local laptop, not from the not from the designated storage, or a designated warehouse, or designated cloud server. Okay, they are seeing it from they saved it on, they exported it to CSV, and then they saved it on the local laptop, and then they are seeing it from there. But then but then when life happens, okay, what might happen is, okay, that laptop, the issue with the saving on local laptop and seeing the data, this kind of sensitive data is, sometimes your laptop might not be encrypted. If your laptop is not encrypted, you should not, you're not encouraged to see all this kind of sensitive or personal data. And what might also happen is, they might actually copy the file whatever they stored in their local laptop to USB, USB, because let's say they are working from some another machine or something like that, and they might upload it to their personal Google Drive, yeah. And they might actually upload the file whatever it is present in their local laptop to Google Drive or OneDrive, maybe just for now, because VPN is slow, or their VDI machine is slow, yeah. People always do that, right? And they might even email that CSV to their personal Gmail, or some other mail, just to work from home or something like that. But now what is happening here, if you slow down and try to understand, now you kind of have all the customer data outside your outside the warehouse, which is basically controlled, yeah. Now you have you have the data spread across, the places where you can't control, basically, which is outside your data warehouse, you know basically your controlled storage, it's basically outside your controlled storage, yeah. And somewhere on personal devices, or personal clouds, right? So that's what is happening here. And this is not a good security pattern, because if there is ever a data breach, or audit, then those files will become super serious problem. Again, the data analyst or the business user is not at all evil here, or they're not bad here, they're just trying to move faster than the official tools allow. Okay, again, I'm going to repeat that sentence. They're just trying to move faster than the official tools allow. Okay, they're just trying to do their job fastly. Okay, they're just trying to find ways around the governance part of the company. Okay, but from the viewpoint of trust and risk, and from the viewpoint of security, this behavior is really dangerous. And if your platform encourages or forces people into this kind of behavior, then it's really dangerous. Okay, so this is actually one of also the most common behavior that you see in day-to-day life inside the companies. Let's try to understand one more classic example. Yeah, let's try to understand one more classic example, that is, um, people will be mainly asking, just make me a admin, make me admin and I will do my work. Yeah. So now this third one, I think, almost every data engineer or data analyst or software engineer, whoever it is, they will probably encounter this kind of scenario, or they will probably see this at some point in their career for sure. So imagine it's one of those days before some big demo or leadership review, and let's say a BI developer or a product person comes to you and says that, hey, listen, this report is broken, and I found the issue because I can't update this table in the reporting schema, because I'm getting this permission error or whatever it is. So can you please just add me to the admin group for today? Okay. Okay. So people will basically come to you and say that, hey, I'm not able to do so and so, but if you add me to the admin group for today, then I'll be able to do this, and then I'll be able to manage the demo. Okay. And we really can't afford to slip this demo, or um, uh, or make we really can't afford to miss this demo, so please help us do it. So what you will do is basically, you are under time pressure as well, right? Okay, you are just a tech guy, and you business people, and you are just a tech guy who are mainly also employed to be helpful for the business people and for the business as well, right? So you are under time pressure as well, so you also really want to help out them. And you don't want to be the person you don't want to be the person that is blocking the demo. So you think like, okay, maybe just this once, so I will add them to this powerful group, and they will fix the issue, and then I will clean up the permission later. I will actually You will think like, I will add it for now, and then I will remove it after some time, right? So with this thinking, it might be fine. Okay. So what you will end up doing is, you will add them to the same group that your senior data engineers or platform admins are present. Okay. From that moment, what they can able to do is basically, they will be able to change schemas. Yeah. They will be able to change schemas, they will be able to modify tables. Yeah. And then they will be able to potentially drop tables or objects, any kind of objects. Yeah. And then they might also be able to access data that they are not supposed to access as well. Yeah. And in some systems it might even get a little bit crazier. For example, uh, even for temporary time, even if you make someone as admin, then they might be able to you know they might be able to also grant powerful roles to other people as well. They might be able to grant powerful roles, like maybe some other kind of admin roles to other people as well. Okay. And here, this last part is even crazy. Okay. This last part is also super crazy, because this new admin or this temporary admin can basically create more admins, right? Okay. So you are trying to be helpful for them, you want to unblock their issue, and then you want to you don't want to be the blocker for their demo, so that's why you kind of added them to the admin group for some time. But then, because of that, now suddenly they will be able to change schemas tables, and then drop objects or access data that they are not supposed to access, and then they might be able to create more admins as well. So, think about this. So your one emergency exception can quietly basically multiply, right? And let's be honest, what usually happens after demo? Okay, basically after demo, everyone is basically super relieved. Yeah, everyone is relieved, and people go home, and nobody remembers to remove the temporary admin access, right? So So basically this person whose main job is basically just building reports or doing some kind of analysis or for the business people, now suddenly they will be keep walking around with the near full platform power or full platform admin access for months or even years. And if something bad ever happens, let's say a table is getting got dropped, or data is exposed, or permissions get weaker, and people when people try to trace it back to whoever had the actual admin access, this is where people will start pointing fingers, right? So to be clear, I'm not saying never help people or never give extra access. I'm not at all saying that one. Of course, we all need to collaborate, and we will all eventually run into that kind of scenarios where we really have to help people and business actually. um, but I'm saying that when you hear just make me admin for now, at least let's pause and think for a moment. Okay, let's pause and think for a moment that let's ask yourself a question, do yourself a favor and ask yourself a question that is there a safer and more limited way? Okay, ask yourself, okay, is there a safer and limited way? Is there a safer and more limited way to unblock this instead of giving someone a full permanent admin access or full permanent powerful access? Okay, because even this small mindset shift already changes the outcome, right? Yeah. So you need to remember that. So and again, these three are most common scenarios that you get to see in real life. People, I'm sure you'll definitely agree with me that you would have seen many people share credentials in the chart, but this is how it will affect. This is how it will affect the security of the company or your data platform. And I'm also sure that you would have saw many people exporting customer data to CSV and then save it on their laptop. Okay, but then this is how it will affect in reality. And then you will obviously, of course, sure that people be giving admin access to their friends or colleagues. Yeah, but this is how it will affect. And when something goes wrong, suddenly everyone will start pointing fingers at you. Okay, and again, I'm not saying you need to need to help, you should not help people or you should not collaborate. I'm saying you should collaborate people and do everything you can do to help business. Yeah, but not at the cost of security. Yeah, so always remember that, because if you compromise at the security, then basically people will lose trust in your data platform and also in you. Okay, so you don't want to do that, right? So always question yourself, is there a safer and limited way to unblock this? Okay, and try to arrive at the conclusion. Now basically, to close this video, actually, let's keep it very practical. Okay, very practical, and honestly, um, now what I probably want you to do is I want you to gently apply this to your own environment in your own company. Okay, you don't have to say anything loud, just think about it for a moment. Yeah, just literally calm down. Okay, pause the video and then think about it for a moment. Have you actually seen credentials or connection strings shared in a chart? Yeah, just to be fast in your company. Okay, and do you know people who regularly export like large tables as CSV and keeps them on their laptops or personal drives? And have you ever seen someone get temporary access, but they actually never got removed? Yeah. And if someone newly joined tomorrow and asks you basically who exactly has admin level access over our data platform right now, would you be able to like comfortably and confidently answer that question? Yeah. So try to actually answer these questions. Yeah. And you don't have to answer it also in the comment section. You don't have to mention it your company name. You don't have to do any of that. You just get the answers for yourself and then maybe keep it in your brain. We will discuss about that. And you don't have to fix everything this week itself, but once you see these patterns, you can't unsee them, right? So that's why I'm saying next time you are under the time pressure, there is at least there should be at least a little voice in your head which is saying, wait, if I do it this way, I might be creating long term risk, right? So that's why, is there any significantly slightly safer way to help here? Okay, always try to question that. And you know that is the main objective of this video. Okay, try to understand, try to be aware of the security as risks that might seem as normal behavior to you but can be potentially really huge security risks. Try to be aware of these kind of behavioral patterns or examples. Yeah. And to close this video, just pick one behavior to change this week. Okay, not all behaviors, just one. Okay, you might decide that I'm not going to paste, let's say, I'm not going to paste like full credentials or connection strings into chart anymore. And I'll point people to proper secrets or show them how to configure the connection, but I won't drop passwords, directly into Slack or Teams channel, and that's fine. So if you decide not to do only this part, if you decide not to paste credentials or connection strings, that's huge win already. And you might also decide that the next time when someone asks me for admin access or any kind of elevated access, I will at least question their intentions, and I will see actually if there is more limited way to help them, then instead of throwing them the admin access, maybe let's try to give them some kind of limited access, uh, and also a kind of automating security. So try to think about one small thing that you can do, to fix the security issues, the behavioral patterns that we discussed till now. That's it. One small habit, nothing huge. Over the time, these small choices basically are exactly the ones that what builds confidence in your data platform, and these are exactly what builds a platform that people trust. Okay, and that's very important. So in next video we will actually talk about how to protect the data while it's moving between the systems and while it's actually stored in your data warehouse or your database or your data lake. So you'll have a clear and simple way to answer those classic data in motion versus data at rest security questions in your interviews, data engineering interviews or architectural discussions, or even data architectural interviews as well. So, to close this video, I'm genuinely curious. If you are comfortable, sharing, please drop a comment in the comment section. Have you ever seen credentials shared in the chat, or temporary admin access that quietly became permanent? You don't have to name your companies. Just a simple, yes, I have seen this enough. Yeah. So I have seen this. If you comment like, yes, I have seen this, then that will basically help other data engineers or other software engineers realize that this is extremely common pattern and this is also worth fixing actually. So if you would comment that, then even I am also probably curious to see how common it is. As far as I know, as far as the companies I've been in, the teams I've been in, I would say it is actually pretty common. But I'm also curious to hear from you. So if you also seen any one of this pattern, please comment, yes, I have seen this. Yeah. And I'll come back to you with one more interesting topic that is about security, about data in motion versus data at rest. And until then, stay tuned and see you and goodbye. Thank you.